Okay, I want to talk you through where we've come from and where we're going with our digital future for the assets we look after. And what a fantastic array of assets we have. We look after 336 properties on behalf of Scottish ministers. An amazing collection of properties across the country, all the way down from the iconic, this will be very familiar to you, to the picture postcard, to the fairy tale castles, to the amazing standing stones, and all the other monuments that we look after that don't have roofs. But it's not only the monuments that fall under my remit. I look after all the shops, infrastructure, facilities that allow us to carry out our operations. We have 27 different depots across the country from which we carry out our works, and we also have lots of car parks, paths, roads, you name it, we've got it. We've been at this for quite a long time. We can trace our history back some 700 years. So you can imagine there's quite a lot of data sitting there for us in various formats. A lot of it's paper, a lot of it's archival, a lot of photographic records, and a lot of stuff in people's heads as well. We have lots of works managers across the country, and I would just love to download their brains. We have some diaries dating back to the 50s, beautiful pieces of paper, but they're all stuck in somebody's drawer. And how do we extract all this to actually be able to use it for our purposes in managing these fantastic assets? Because this is what we have now available to us. This is Tantallon Castle on the east coast of Scotland. And I think you'll agree, just absolutely fantastic information that we can use. But when is too much? When is data too much? And I think for me, it's the question of why we're actually collating this data. What are we going to use it for? And how can it inform the decisions that we need to make to manage our assets? It's about what's useful, and turning data into information is part of my job. And how we use the data to understand, to plan, and then deliver our works is really my core purpose. With Sofia and the team, we've been developing what that digital ecosystem looks like within the estates team. We've been researching and looking into the possibility of a digital twin for a lot of our buildings, and also what that common data environment can do and how we can interlink our data with external data sets. This all comes together in our PICAMS project, which is PIC Asset Management System. And that's very much this digital ecosystem that actually looks at linking, accessing, and managing the data. What is that portal? What's that search engine that actually is that user interface? My vision is that it's a 3D portal, but that's what we're looking at the minute, and that's what Sofia is actually working on at the minute in terms of the PICAMS project. So to understand the monuments and our properties, we're using the data. And we've touched on the RAY project before. Lynn's going to speak about that in much more detail. That's the digital capture of the 336 properties we have. We need to understand the vulnerability of our monuments and their needs. Again, Lynn will talk more about this, about how we're monitoring coastal erosion at Scarborough. And climate change, using GIS and using different data sets from other organisations. This is a collaboration project with BGS, British Geological Survey, where we've been looking at the climate change assessment of all our properties across Scotland and developing a methodology that the rest of the sector can use to help us understand the vulnerability of our sites. Then also understanding the technical aspects. This is not a love letter, this is actually a love building. This is a monument near Largs, near the best ice cream shop in the world, if anyone ever wants to have a visit. Skelmersdale Isle, and it was built by a man for his wife who died. And it's the most exquisite stone carving I think I've ever seen in Scotland. But we have some problems there. We have some damp ingress, And this is overlaying different data sets to actually be able to understand what's going on in this building. We've touched on thermography. This is microwave moisture monitoring data, where we're actually overlaying it with the 3D point cloud to actually help to see where the problems are. Understanding how buildings perform is increasingly important. We've been making big inroads in terms of carbon management and energy efficiency, and actually allowing the data sets to all start to interact and to be able to interrogate everything within that common data environment, to actually be able to see, are we making any difference in terms of energy efficiency or compliance, or what it is that we have to capture about our buildings. And then condition. A lot of our investment is linked to the condition and the needs of the monuments. We've been developing a new condition capture tool with BGS. It's based on BGS Sigma, which is something that British Geological Survey have been using for the last 15 years to capture information about rocks. So we saw some parallels with this, and we thought there's some applications we can use with the buildings. So we've been developing a platform with them in terms of the front end and some of the coding. And it's a GIS-based system where you can pull in lots of different layers of information. One of my architects describes it as a lasagna of information. And in that, we can then have observation points where we attribute different data sets on condition to the particular element within the site. And that allows us to look at different things, to put a value on condition, which is really important, and actually to move our teams away from paper-based outputs. We have drawers and cupboards full of condition assessments. I've inherited somebody's office, and there's a wall just full of condition surveys. I don't have time to read them all, but it's moving the team from that paper-based output to actually having this live data environment where we can start to interrogate and actually see what information is useful for us. It's a tablet-based tool where people go out in the field and actually capture the information there. Again, a bit of a culture change for the team. Traditionally, we would have used paper. You've gone out in the wind and the rain with a plastic bag over your bit of paper. And actually using this tough tablet to be able to take photos, to doodle on it, to draw stuff, and actually then start to look at workflows, to try and look at actions that come out of that as well, so that we can start to plan our work a bit better. The observation points give you a colour, so it's a risk-based system. So it's based on red, orange and yellow, very simple. And the reds are high risk, orange is medium, and the yellow is a bit lower. And that starts to allow us to look at condition and investment needs, and actually plan the works, and plan phases of works based on the evidence that's taken from the site directly. So we can start to look at where scaffolds should be going up, and look at maybe 2, 5 and 10-year plans for each individual site through our ROI diagrams, our red, orange and yellow diagrams. Also looking at photogrammetry. This is one of Stuart Deasley's drawings. He's in the office today. This is Sweetheart Abbey down in Dumfries and Galloway. And actually using some of the imagery from the photogrammetry to be able to go out on site. At the moment, the guys are using this on site as a paper-based system, because we don't have the mobile technology necessarily, but they can actually use it on site in the field. But again, that's somewhere where we're going, and we have a couple of pilot studies where we're looking at using iPads on the scaffold. And I love the simplicity of this drawing, but yet what it captures is just fantastic, because you can see immediately the stones that need the different work. And it's that detailed, quite simple, but very effective use of that. And there's also some scaffold lifts in there, which I think is a lovely idea to put on a drawing. So how we deliver our works is also influenced by new technology. Some of you will be aware of BIM, which is Building Information Modelling. I probably refer to it better as better information management, because it shouldn't all be about the model. Normally in a new build, it's about where you have an integrated model where all different professions and disciplines work off this common data environment. But I think BIM can be used for both project delivery and asset management across our property portfolio. Our portfolio splits into roughly 3 equal thirds. We have our roofed buildings, then we have the ones that don't have any roofs, and then we have our lumps and bumps. Absolutely fantastic sites. But what's the application of BIM across all of these different things? And I think to have that live archive, to have that accessible interface, and to have the asset management tool is actually really, really helpful. We've been doing some Pathfinder projects with Scottish Futures Trust. Check them out online. Edinburgh Castle is one of them. And again, a very complex site where we've been looking at the palace block there and creating a Revit model for that. And then attributing all the different sets of information into that Revit model. It's one of the plant rooms. And then the actual model and what that allows us to do. So again, integrating not only conservation, repair and maintenance, also looking at facilities management, and looking at energy, environmental monitoring, and also as-built and record drawings. Because quite often we don't want to have an invasive survey, but the works manager who's been there for 35 years will remember where the pipe is behind the wall. So if we can put that into the model, it actually allows us to document our buildings and look more at health and safety plans and what have you in the future. This building we're in here, we have a BIM model for that. And I think again, in terms of facilities and asset management, really, really important. But do we need the Revit model? Should we maybe just look at going straight to point cloud data and attributing the information to that and nesting different sets of information to, say, a mesh or something like that? This is a pilot study we're doing at Callanish, where we're looking at what data we could attribute to the mesh. So things like what type of stone it is, where the quarry was that stone was brought from, when there's been any conservators' reports or anything that's been carried out to that stone in terms of its carving or its repair. And it's a really exciting bit of research. So I think if we can get it to work for a standing stone, there's lots of opportunity elsewhere in the historic traditional building sector. And then looking at VR and experiencing a building digitally. This is a proposal for a cafe refurb at Stirling Castle, and this is our chief exec experiencing what it would be like to walk through that cafe. So how do we get from this to this? I think that's my challenge, and it involves a lot of change. We've talked a lot about culture today as well, and how the technology and how everything has to change. And for me, change is very much about 3 things. We need to bring our people into that process. It won't happen unless the people are prepared to change, and to change their processes and their workflows. We've been looking at a baselining project for PICAMS, and we've identified something like 89 different workflows within that, which I think is amazing. And we're still counting, we're still finding different workflows. So all those workflows and all those processes, we've never documented them, we've never written them down. So actually trying to get those fixed in with how people work and make that happen is quite a challenge. And the technology is there to support it. I think that some of the technology is driving the change, and it is very much this 3-pronged attack as to how we actually deliver this and make this happen. And I think the future is digital. I think combining the people, the process and the technology, we will work to actually have both a physical and a digital future for our assets.